Am I the for asking my oldest son to help the family after his brother ruined us? The last words I ever heard from him still ring in my ears. If you ever come to my door again, I'll call the cops. He didn't yell it. He didn't cry. He just said it with that heavy voice people use when they're completely done with you. That was my son talking to me like I was a stranger. And the worst part? I understood why. I was standing there, a mother outside her own child's house, begging with my eyes for him to open the door. Just enough for me to step in. Just enough to let me explain. But he didn't. He shut the door in my face like I was nothing more than a bug under his shoe. I have 2 boys. They're close in age, barely 2 years apart. When they were little, they were inseparable. They played together, shared a bed when the thunder scared them, always backed each other up in schoolyard fights. I honestly thought they'd grow up to be best friends for life. I told myself I loved them both equally. But if I'm brutally honest, painfully honest, I always had a softer spot for the younger one. He was the clingy type, more sensitive, always needing me. The older one was different, quiet, steady, independent. He never asked for much, so I fooled myself into believing he didn't need me the same way. That was favoritism, I see it now. Not the loud, obvious kind. No, mine was a quieter cruelty, telling myself I was just protecting the fragile one while the strong one could fend for himself. And that way of thinking, it ended up destroying us. When college time came around, reality hit hard. We couldn't afford to pay tuition for both kids. My husband and I were stretched thin. We made a choice that still burns me inside. We told our oldest we couldn't cover all his costs. He'd have to apply for scholarships, take jobs, somehow make it work. And he did. He worked himself ragged, took night shifts, lived tired. And he never complained. Not once. Meanwhile, we paid every cent for his younger brother. We told ourselves, he needs more help. He's not as strong. We convinced ourselves we were making the right call. The truth? We were pushing one son further and further away. I saw the exhaustion on my oldest's face. I noticed the cracks on his hands from lifting boxes and scrubbing in kitchens. Every time I looked at him, a hollow ache filled me. I knew it wasn't fair. But I told myself it was only temporary, that someday things would balance out. That was the lie I held on to. He never confronted us, not at first. He just drifted. Stopped expecting anything from me. That distance hurt, but I didn't stop it. And the younger one? He had everything handed to him. If he got hurt, I ran to him. If he wanted something, I made it happen. I pinned my dreams on him, hoping that through his success, maybe I could make up for my mistakes with his brother. Then came Emma. She'd been a friend to both boys since high school. But one day my oldest started dating her, and for the first time I saw real joy on his face. He laughed again. He came home more often. He talked about a future. Emma was kind, down to earth, and I loved her like a daughter. But her presence put a crack in the bond between my boys. My oldest stopped including his brother. Stopped dragging him along everywhere. When I asked why, he looked me in the eye and said coldly, "He's not a kid anymore, Mom." His tone cut me, but I swallowed my words like I always did. And then we repeated the same mistake. The younger one started failing in college. He felt insecure, afraid, overwhelmed. And what did we do? We doubled down. Paid for tutors. Bought him a brand new laptop. Even promised to cover his whole degree if necessary. Somehow my oldest found out. That night he came home, looked at me with eyes so full of betrayal it made me sick. "So it's true," he said. "He was always your favorite." I had no defense. None. I just stood there in silence while the truth crushed me. Maybe that was the night something inside him snapped for good. Even before that, the guilt was there. I felt it every time I saw him stumble in after work, dead tired. Every time I passed by his room and heard him studying into the early hours. Deep down I knew I was failing him, but I told myself lies to survive it. That he was strong. That this was all temporary. That someday it would make sense. But it didn't. And it never would. I never thought I was picking sides between my boys. But looking back now, I know I did. One morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when my younger son walked in. He didn't say much. Just sat there with that childlike expression he always carried when he wanted comfort without asking for it out loud. After a long pause, he blurted out, "Mom, I like Emma." I froze. My heart just about stopped. "What do you mean you like her?" I asked, almost afraid of his answer. "Always," he muttered, staring at the table. "Since high school. I never told her because he got to her first." He didn't even call his brother by name. Just he. That word carried so much weight, so much resentment, it almost knocked the air out of me. He said it had always been like that, that his brother always took everything. In his voice I heard jealousy, bitterness, and years of quiet anger bubbling to the surface. I stood there, unsure whether to hug him or scold him. His face wasn't mean, there was no malice. Only sadness and that quiet old resentment that had been simmering for years. But they're together now, I finally managed to say. And they look happy. And what about me? He shot back, his voice cracking. Doesn't anyone see me? I had no answer. So I did the only thing I could. I pulled him into my arms and held him like a little boy again. And that was the moment everything began to collapse. From then on, whenever Emma came over, I started seeing things differently. Maybe those signs had always been there, but now they felt like proof. The way she laughed more at the younger one's jokes. The way she really listened when he spoke. The way she sat close to him on the couch, probably without even realizing it. And I'll confess something terrible. I planted the seed myself. One afternoon while Emma and I were cooking dinner, I said casually, almost like a slip of the tongue. You and the younger one always seem so connected. Almost like there's some special spark between you two. She frowned. What do you mean? Oh, I don't know, I said quickly, brushing it off. Sometimes people end up with someone they shouldn't, just because they never dared to see what was right in front of them. Sometimes real love is closer than we think. Emma didn't reply. She just gave me a confused look. I changed the subject, but I said things like that again. And again. Small hints. Subtle comments. Like, you and the older one don't seem that close lately. Or, have you noticed how the younger one looks at you? Like you're his whole world. I never outright told her to leave my oldest. I didn't have to. And I didn't stop with Emma. I spoke to my younger son too. I told him maybe Emma did feel something for him. Maybe she just needed time to realize it. I told him not to give up, to fight for what he loved. It was me. I was the one who poured gasoline on the little spark already smoldering between them. Then one night Emma stayed late. My older boy was working the night shift. I went to bed thinking nothing of it. The next morning, I found my younger son in the kitchen. His eyes were red, his whole body shaking. What happened? I asked. It happened, he whispered. That's all. And then he broke down. His face crumpled and he clung to me like he was a scared kid again. Through sobs, he told me that he and Emma had been together the night before. He didn't know what it meant, didn't know what she was going to do. Only that it had happened. My chest felt hollow like the floor had disappeared. I didn't know if I should scream, cry, or hit him. Instead I hugged him. He told me she hadn't promised him anything. That she might never speak to him again. He just needed to say it out loud. And then days later Emma vanished. She stopped coming over. She stopped replying to his messages. My oldest didn't say a word about it, but something in him changed. He grew quieter, tenser, as if he knew something but didn't want to admit it. The younger one was left in limbo, waiting for answers that never came. Until one afternoon Emma came back. I'll never forget the look on her face. She was pale, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes. She didn't even want to come inside. She stood at the doorway like a stranger who felt she had no right to be in our home. My older son was on the couch with his laptop. When he saw her, he jumped up. What's wrong? Are you okay? His voice was a mixture of nerves and hope. Emma nodded weakly, her arms crossed tight over her chest. And then, without building up to it, she dropped the bomb. I'm pregnant. I saw my oldest son's face change completely in that instant. He smiled at first, almost in relief, and stepped closer to Emma. Really? Are you serious? He asked, eyes wide. But she quickly stepped back. Her voice cracked when she said, It's not yours. Even though I was in the kitchen, I swear I could hear his heart breaking. He didn't speak, just stared at her. At first confused, then crushed, and finally empty. Emma dropped her eyes to the floor, and the silence in that room became unbearable. And then fate, or maybe punishment, brought the younger one into the doorway at that exact moment. He froze, seeing their faces. And just like that, the dam broke. My oldest son lunged at him. There was no thinking, no hesitation. His fist connected hard, sending his brother crashing to the floor, his head bouncing against the wall. Emma screamed. I screamed. My husband came running from the patio. But the damage was done. How could you? My oldest shouted, his voice shaking with rage. You were my brother. My damned brother. The younger one didn't fight back. He just raised his arms, covering his face like a child. My husband managed to pull them apart, but the wound was already cut deep, bleeding and impossible to heal. And then my oldest turned to me. The look he gave me was worse than any shout. It was fury mixed with disappointment, and behind it all, something even more painful: indifference. "You knew," he said flatly. I couldn't lift my eyes. I just looked down, and that was all he needed. "Of course you knew," he spat, his voice cracking. "You were always part of this." My husband tried to calm him, but our son shoved him aside. "Don't you dare try to save her. Or him. This family is rotten. It always was." Emma was sobbing. The younger one was still slumped on the floor. I opened my mouth, desperate to explain, but my son raised his hand, silencing me. "I don't want to see any of you ever again. You all died to me today." And with that he walked out. No bag, no goodbye, no looking back. He just left. That night none of us slept. Emma locked herself in her room. The younger one cried until exhaustion knocked him out. My husband smoked alone on the terrace, staring into the dark. And I sat in the living room, arms crossed, my body still, but inside me, something had broken forever. Days turned into months. Emma gave birth to a baby girl, my granddaughter. She was beautiful, perfect, but I couldn't enjoy her. Her cry only reminded me of the silence left behind by my oldest. I tried to call him, to write to him, to reach out any way I could. He never responded. One day I realized he had changed his number, then his city, then his entire life. And we were left picking up the pieces. The younger one tried to do right. He worked, he provided, he tried to be a father. I helped where I could. But there was always a shadow in the room, something missing, something that had left with his brother. And just when I thought time might ease the pain, the phone rang at 2:13 in the morning. A hospital call. My younger son had fallen at work. Head trauma. Spinal fracture. Unconscious. In a coma. The doctor's voice was grim. It was serious. If he woke up, there was a strong chance he would never walk again. The insurance covered only the basics. The treatments, the advanced surgery he desperately needed, those were beyond our reach. Emma couldn't work. She had to care for their daughter. My husband and I were barely keeping the house afloat. Bills began to pile up like bricks on my chest. And then one afternoon my niece visited me. She sat down quietly and said, "Did you know your oldest son is doing very well?" Her words cut deeper than a knife. I felt my throat tighten. "My son doing well?" She nodded. "He lives in another city now. Has a good job. They say he's engaged." That last part broke me in ways I can't explain. Not out of jealousy or pride, but because in that moment I realized something undeniable. His new life had no space left for us. We weren't invited. With my husband's help, we tracked down an address. A neat, quiet neighborhood with tidy houses. My hand shook as I knocked on the door. I hadn't been this nervous since the day I left him at preschool. He opened after a pause. For a moment he didn't even recognize me. "What are you doing here?" His voice was flat, cold, detached. "I need to talk to you. Please." He didn't move aside. Just stood there in the doorway, arms crossed. "It's your brother," I said quickly. "He's in a coma. He had an accident. It's serious. Very serious." He didn't flinch. No frown, no gasp, not even a question. "The insurance won't cover everything. He needs urgent surgery. If it isn't done soon, he could die or be left disabled. We don't have the money." His eyes didn't soften. His reply was sharp as glass. "And what does that have to do with me?" "He's your brother." I burst out, my voice breaking. "Your blood. The family you have left." His jaw tightened. His voice turned to stone. "No. You all died years ago. And I don't bring the dead back." I trembled, but I pressed on. "Emma doesn't work. She has to take care of her daughter. Your niece. She's 6 years old. It's not her fault. She can't grow up without a father." He looked at me like I was describing a stranger. "You want me to pay for the daughter of the woman who cheated on me with my own brother, while you stood by and watched?" "It wasn't like that." I began, but he cut me off, raising his voice for the first time. "Wasn't like that? Do you really have the nerve to come here after everything and ask me for money? To demand maturity from me?" My body burned with shame and desperation. I whispered the only thing I could. "You were always the strong one. The one who could manage on his own. The one who never needed anything. My brother always needed more." That's what I wanted to tell him. But the truth was harsher. He always wanted more. And I was the one who kept handing it to him, even when it meant taking away from my other son. Silence stretched between us. Then my older boy whispered words that cut me open. I loved her. Emma. I was going to ask her to move in with me. I had everything planned. And you? His voice cracked. You let him take her. Because you never knew how to love without dividing. I reached out and touched his arm, desperate, but he pulled away like my touch burned him. You have to help, I pleaded. His response was chilling, steady. And if he dies? Then it's the consequence of his choices, not mine. I tried again, a plea, a cry, even the only argument I thought I had left. I'm your mother. But he raised his phone in front of me. Leave. Or I'm calling the police. My legs trembled as I walked away. My chest felt hollow, my soul nothing but dust. Back home, I didn't need to explain a word. My husband saw my face and knew. We didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the doctor's voice was sharp and urgent. If the surgery isn't done this week, your son may never walk again. Or he might not survive at all. We didn't have the money. We had only one thing left. My mother's house. The one I'd inherited, the one we rented out to get by, the one that was supposed to be my retirement. My last anchor. My husband and I looked at each other. We both knew. We would have to let it go. But before that, I begged for one last attempt. Together this time, we went back to our older son's door. I didn't expect redemption anymore, just a flicker of humanity. A spark. Something. He opened like he had been expecting us. No surprise in his eyes. My husband stepped forward and spoke first. Your brother is dying. If he doesn't get the surgery this week, he might not make it, or he'll be paralyzed for life. We have no way to pay. You're the only one left who can. Our son leaned against the doorframe, his face unreadable, as though we were describing some stranger. Why me? He finally asked. Because you're his brother, I said softly. Because once you were. He shook his head. I'm not. You made that clear when you chose him, when you stayed silent, when you gave him what should have been mine. My husband tried to intervene. This isn't the time to talk about the past. We're here because there's no other way out. And Grandma's house? My son asked coldly, looking straight at me. Have you sold it yet? Not yet, I whispered. But it's all we have left. If we do, we'll have nothing for retirement. Oh, now you think about the future. His laugh was sharp, empty. Now that the favorite is at risk. My husband's face turned red. He stepped closer, fists clenched. Grow up. You're a man now. Are you really going to let your own brother die just out of pride? It's not pride, he answered flatly. It's dignity. Something you stole from me years ago. He's your blood. I cried, breaking down. Your niece needs you. And that was when he finally exploded. Emma is nothing to me. She used me. She betrayed me. And you let it happen. And now you want me to fund her new life, her mistakes, her comfort? No. The silence was heavy, suffocating. You're selfish, I spat through tears. What kind of son turns his back on his family like this? That was when it happened. My husband, who had held himself back all this time, snapped. In a flash of rage, he shoved our son's shoulder. Just one desperate, reckless motion. Our son staggered, then straightened slowly. His eyes were ice. Do it again, he said, pulling out his phone. And I'll have you in court. My husband lowered his hand, shame burning his face. I stepped back, my heart pounding. Don't come back, our son said, his voice like steel. Don't call. Don't write. Don't look for me. If you do, you'll hear from my lawyer. And with that, he closed the door. Not slammed. Just shut it gently, like lowering a tombstone over the grave of our family. That night, we sold my mother's house. Signed the papers. Watched the last security of my old age slip away. But it paid for the operation. Days later, the surgery was done. Complicated, exhausting, but successful. Within limits. My younger son lived. But the doctor was clear. He would never walk again. From the waist down, paralyzed. Emma collapsed into tears. Every day she cried, saying it was her fault, saying she couldn't raise a child alone and care for a man who would never stand again. Their little girl looked at us with wide eyes and asked, "Why can't Daddy play with me anymore?" And I sat there in the same hospital chair, thinking only one thing. This is what I built. This is the family I created. I thought time would heal. I thought one day I'd hear a knock, open the door, and see my oldest standing there. Still angry, still cold, but willing to speak. To say, let's talk. Or maybe just Mom. But no. Years have gone by.